Why wasn't I on the guest list of my own son's wedding? That question has burned in my mind since the day I discovered the truth. My name is Gloria Robinson, 71 years old, retired, and the mother of an only son named Marcus. For more than 3 years, I had carried their rent, their groceries, even the furniture they sat on every night. I believed I was part of their future. I believed I was family. But one sentence shattered that illusion. It was supposed to be a joyful afternoon. I had just finished ironing the pale blue dress I bought for the wedding. It still hung in the closet with the tag attached. My shoes were neatly boxed at the foot of my bed. I had even put aside $1,000 in an envelope to gift them on that special day. I imagined pictures where I stood beside my son, smiling with pride. I imagined sharing a meal after the ceremony. I imagined hearing him say, "Mom, thank you for everything." None of that happened. When I finally asked Marcus about the date, he would not meet my eyes. It was Tasha, his fiancée, no, his wife now, who leaned back on my sofa and delivered the blow with a smirk. "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Special people. The words hit like a stone to my chest. I, who had sacrificed every comfort to keep them afloat, was not special. I, who had emptied retirement savings to cover emergencies and whims, was invisible on the most important day of my only child's life. My knees trembled. The phone in my hand felt as heavy as a brick. Marcus sat silently, pretending to study the carpet, as if shame had sealed his lips. Meanwhile, Tasha stretched her legs across the very sofa I had bought them, confident in her victory. The air in my living room turned so thick I could barely breathe. I forced myself to stay composed, but my heart was racing. That dress in the closet suddenly became a costume for a role I would never play. The shoes became useless ornaments. The envelope with $1,000 mocked me from the kitchen drawer. All my plans dissolved like sugar in water. For weeks I had cleaned my house top to bottom, thinking they might bring friends over after the ceremony. I had rehearsed what I would say when relatives came to congratulate us. I had even called my sister Diana in Chicago to tell her to save the date. And yet here I stood learning that I was not even worth a phone call. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask Marcus why he allowed it. But no sound came out. My son remained a statue, his head bent, his loyalty chained to the woman beside him. Later that evening, when I scrolled through social media, the betrayal deepened. There they were, Marcus and Tasha, dressed in white and black, glasses of champagne in hand. Her parents stood proudly on either side, her siblings raising toasts. They looked radiant, celebrated, surrounded. And I, the woman who had helped pay for that very dress with $800 the month before, was erased from the frame. I remember closing my laptop and sitting in silence for hours. The house felt foreign. The walls echoed with memories of a little boy who once hugged me tight and said, "You're the best mom in the world." That boy no longer existed. In his place stood a man who saw me only as a wallet. I tried to sleep that night, but every time I closed my eyes, I heard Tasha's voice again. Only special people. I replayed the years of transfers, the birthdays I made possible, the Christmas dinners I hosted, the bills I quietly covered. I wondered how love had turned into debt, how motherhood had turned into servitude. The next morning the sun rose, but nothing felt bright. My coffee tasted bitter. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman with tired eyes and wrinkles carved by years of sacrifice. Yet, beneath those lines, I noticed something different, something colder. A new question formed in my mind. If I am not special enough to be at their wedding, why should my money always be special enough to save them? That was the seed of a storm. I did not know it then, but the shock of being excluded would lead me down a road of battles fiercer than I had ever imagined. This was not just about a wedding. It was about dignity, survival, and the price of unconditional love. The story I am about to tell is not gentle. It is filled with confrontations, betrayals, and choices that cut deeper than knives. But it begins here in the living room I furnished for them, where my son looked away and my daughter-in-law declared that I was not special. And so I ask again for everyone who listens, why wasn't I on the guest list of my own son's wedding? The answer is simple and cruel. Because to them, love had a price. And the moment I stopped paying, I stopped existing. 7 days passed in a slow ache. On the 8th morning, my phone flashed an unknown number. I let it ring out. It rang again. I answered. "Gloria." Thank God you picked up. The rent is due and the landlord is being dramatic. You forgot to make the transfer. We need it today. It was Tasha. No greeting, no apology. The blue dress still hung in the closet. The envelope with $1,000 waited in the kitchen drawer. Tasha, I said, do you remember what you told me last week? You said you only invited special people. A pause. Gloria, do not take it that way. It was intimate. We plan a bigger celebration soon. Right now, can you help with the rent? It is only $500. We will pay you back next month. Next month had lived in our house for 3 years and never once paid a bill. I only help special people, I said. Silence. Then a thin laugh. What does that even mean? It means I am finished paying for a life that does not seat me at its table. Her tone sharpened. Are you serious? We will be evicted. Marcus is at work. I am handling this. You cannot do this to us. For years I paid rent that was not mine. I stocked a refrigerator in a house where I was not welcome. I helped buy a dress I never saw. You made a choice. I am making mine. She tried honey. Gloria, I know you are hurt. I am sorry you felt excluded. It was not personal. Please do not punish Marcus for my decision. He loves you. Put Marcus on the phone. He came on with a careful hello. Mom, we have a situation. The landlord is bluffing, but I do not want drama. Can you bridge us till Friday? Marcus, did you get married? Yes. Did you think I should be there? He hesitated. Tasha wanted small. We can do a family dinner. This is not the moment. Can you help us today? Water ran in the sink. I remember teaching you to ride a bike, I said. I promised to stand with you. I never promised to finance your adulthood. I will not buy my way into your life. Mom, it is $500. The bank has the template. It takes 1 minute. 1 minute has cost me $33,000. 1 minute has cost me my self-respect. He exhaled. Are you really counting now? I am remembering, and I am done repeating. Tasha returned. If the locks change, we will have nowhere to go. We may need to stay with you a few nights. No, I will not add more keys to my door. Her patience cracked. We counted on you. That is the problem. You counted on me to forget myself. I expected rage. Instead, there was a quiet stretch of air. Listen, Gloria, she said we can fix this. Come over for dinner tonight. We will make it right. Send the rent first so I can stop the landlord. Then we talk like family. I saw the photos again, my place empty. No, if you want to talk, we will do it here tomorrow at noon. Money will not be on the table. You are unbelievable, she snapped. After everything you have done for us, you picked the worst moment to become selfish. If protecting my dignity is selfish, I should have started earlier. We will remember this, she warned. Do not be surprised when we make choices too. The call ended. The kitchen settled into the tick of the clock. Guilt did not flood me. I made coffee. I took the envelope from the drawer and pressed the edges. Then I slid it into a box and taped it shut. I called the bank and canceled the automatic transfer. 1 minute, one form, a different life. Before leaving for the branch, I opened the closet and touched the blue dress. I would keep it as a witness, not to their wedding, but to the moment I stopped asking for a seat. At the branch, the manager, Mr. Harris, greeted me by name. Mrs. Robinson, are you sure you want to end the transfers? Yes, I want complete stops and added protections. No one moves a dollar without my consent. He nodded. We will add alerts and a note. On the way home, my phone rang twice more. I let it ring. At my porch, I stood with the keys in my hand and understood something simple. A refusal is not only a wall, it is also a door. It opens to sleep without dread. It opens to the quiet pleasure of coffee for one. It opens to a day that belongs to you. I closed my eyes and let relief settle where fear used to live inside me. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house no longer felt foreign. It felt like it had been waiting for me to come back to myself. It was a gray afternoon when the knock came at my door. I opened it to see Marcus, Tasha, and a tall man in a gray suit holding a leather briefcase. My son looked uneasy, his eyes darting away. Tasha stood stiff, lips pressed tight as if she had rehearsed her lines. The stranger smiled with professional confidence. Mrs. Robinson, he said I am Mr. Fraser, a family law attorney. Your children asked me to accompany them to discuss important matters. May we come in? They did not wait for my answer. They walked past me into my living room. Marcus sat on the sofa with his head in his hands. Tasha paced near the window. Mr. Fraser spread papers across my dining table as though it belonged to him. I stood frozen. "What is happening here?" "Mom," Marcus began, "we are worried about you. You've been acting strangely. First you cut off the rent without explanation. Then you ignore our calls. We want to help you. Help me." I crossed my arms. "Help me by barging into my home with a lawyer." Tasha stepped closer. "Gloria, honey, we love you, but you are alone too much. Confusion is normal at your age. We need to ensure your finances are managed responsibly." Confusion. The word burned. "You think I am confused because I stopped paying your bills." Mr. Fraser lifted a paper from the table. "Mrs. Robinson, this is a simple document, a power of attorney. It would allow Marcus and Tasha to handle your accounts until you feel better. It is only temporary." He slid the folder toward me. I picked it up and without opening it, dropped it into the trash can beside the table. "The only transfer today is you three transferring yourselves out of my house." Tasha gasped. "You cannot do this. We depend on you. We planned our obligations around your support. We have rent car payments, credit cards, obligations built on my money, not your work." Marcus stood suddenly, his face red like a boy denied a toy. "Mom, you cannot just cut us off. You raised me to trust you. You promised to always be there. I raised you to stand on your own 2 feet. At 35, you should not cling to your mother's pension." Mr. Fraser kept his smooth tone. "Mrs. Robinson, I understand emotions are high, but if your behavior continues, the court can assign guardianship. Judges take signs of decline seriously." I turned to him with steady eyes. "I have managed my household for decades. I raised a child alone. I paid every tax, every bill. My accounts are flawless. You have no right to question my mind in my own house." Tasha's mask cracked. "Fine, but everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. Why not let us manage it now?" There it was. The truth laid bare. Not love, not concern. In their eyes, I was already gone, and my money already theirs. "Out," I said, pointing at the door. They hesitated. Marcus tried once more. "Mom, please be reasonable. We can fix the wedding misunderstanding. We can start over. Just sign." Reasonable. Reasonable means paying your rent forever while you erase me from your life. Reasonable means pretending betrayal does not cut. "No." Mr. Fraser gathered his briefcase. "This is not over," he said. "Your family has options." "Good. Use your own money for them." Tasha's eyes filled with tears of frustration, not sorrow. "Gloria, you are cruel. We counted on you. You counted on my silence. That is over." They walked to the door with wounded pride. Before leaving, Marcus turned. "Mom, this will end badly for you. You will end up alone with no one to care for you." I met his eyes with sadness but also clarity. I am already alone. The difference is now, it is my choice. The door closed. Silence filled the room. It was not empty silence. It was mine. That night I could not sleep, but it was not grief that kept me awake. It was adrenaline. For the first time in years, I had defended myself. I lay in bed planning my next moves. They wanted war. I would answer with wisdom, not fear. The morning sun rose and I brewed coffee. The taste was sharp and clean. I sat at the table and spread my bank statements before me. It was time to see clearly. $33,000. That was the sum of my sacrifices. Enough for travel, enough for years of comfort. All spent to keep 2 adults lazy and ungrateful. I stacked the papers neatly. They were not only numbers, they were evidence. Evidence of love twisted into debt. The phone rang. Marcus, then Tasha. I let it ring until silence returned. 10 minutes later, a message appeared. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." I deleted it. My coffee was still warm. At 2 in the afternoon, I put on my coat and stepped outside. The park waited down the street. I had not walked there in years without errands for them. Today, I walked for me. Each step felt lighter. I had begun the long journey back to myself. The walk in the park carried me past the playground where I used to bring Marcus. I saw shadows of the little boy he had been climbing ladders with fearless laughter. My chest ached. When had that boy become a man who saw me as an ATM with feelings? I kept walking until my legs grew steady. By the time I returned home, I knew I had to protect myself not only from them, but from my own weakness. The next morning, I opened my checkbook and bank records. I wanted exact numbers. Rent alone had drained $18,000. Groceries and supplies, another $7,000. Gifts and celebrations, close to $3,000. The list continued with repairs, car loans, and emergencies that never ended. The total stood at more than $33,000. I whispered the number like a prayer of mourning. It was money my late husband Robert had left for me to live with dignity. Instead, I had financed the comfort of 2 adults who erased me from their wedding. Enough. I folded the statements into a folder marked with red ink. These were no longer bills. They were evidence of my awakening. At the bank, I met Mr. Harris, the branch manager. His round glasses reflected surprise when I asked to cancel every automatic transfer. "Mrs. Robinson," he said, "for 3 years these payments have been regular as the sunrise. Are you sure?" "Yes. I want them canceled and I want protection added to every account. No one moves a dollar without my consent." He nodded slowly. "I will take care of it. I also recommend new passwords and daily alerts." For the first time in years, the pen in my hand did not sign away money. It signed back control. As I left his office, my phone vibrated nonstop. Marcus. Tasha. Then again, I turned it off. Silence felt holy. That evening, I sat with a notebook and began writing all the sacrifices I had made. Trips I had canceled to send them money. Friends I had not visited because I feared unexpected calls for help. Hobbies abandoned so every spare dollar could cover their needs. Each sentence felt like carving a gravestone for a piece of myself, yet with every page, I also felt lighter. The next day, I walked into the hardware store owned by Mr. Simmons, a neighbor who had watched me for years rushing to buy supplies for Marcus and Tasha's apartment. He raised his eyebrows. "Another emergency for your son." "No, this time it is for me. I need new locks, the best you have." Surprise flickered in his eyes, but he asked no questions. While I chose the locks, his son Ethan entered the shop carrying equipment. He installed security systems for homes in the neighborhood. Providence had placed him in my path. "Ethan, I need cameras installed in my house as soon as possible. The price is not the issue." He promised to come the next morning. When I returned home, I found myself staring at the closet again. The blue dress still hung there untouched. I touched the fabric and felt a wave of sorrow, but not regret. That dress was no longer a symbol of exclusion. It was now a monument to the moment I finally learned to say no. The following morning, Ethan arrived with tools and wires. As he worked, I heard my phone buzzing from the kitchen. Unknown numbers, different area codes. Tasha was desperate enough to borrow phones. I let it ring. I had a new skill now, ignoring calls that did not honor me. At noon, the doorbell rang. I checked the feed from the newly mounted camera. It showed a woman in her late 60s with kind eyes holding a small basket. I opened the door. "Mrs. Robinson," she asked gently. "Yes, that is me. I am Eleanor Brooks. I live 2 houses down. Yesterday I heard raised voices in your home and grew worried. Is everything all right?" Her concern felt genuine, more real than all the pleading voices of Marcus and Tasha. "Come in. I will make coffee and tell you a story you may not believe." Over mugs of hot coffee, I told her everything. The secret wedding, the humiliation, the lawyer in my living room, my decision to cut them off. She listened without interruption, only nodding as tears gathered in her eyes. "Mrs. Robinson, she said you did the right thing. 5 years ago, my own daughter drained me the same way. She called me her second mother and told me I was special, but every word was tied to money. When I stopped paying, she tried to break me. It was terrible at first, but after months she called to apologize. Now we have a real relationship." Her words were balm. "Do you think Marcus and Tasha will ever understand? Maybe yes, maybe no. But that is no longer your responsibility. Your responsibility is to live your life." That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. The cameras blinked quietly, guardians of my peace. The locks turned firm under my hand. My account stood safe behind passwords known only to me. For the first time since Robert's death, I felt like my future belonged to me. The peace did not last long. 1 week later, I walked into the pharmacy to pick up vitamins. Mr. Green, the pharmacist, looked uneasy when he saw me. "Mrs. Robinson, I hope everything is all right." I nodded politely but noticed how he avoided my eyes. That evening I learned why. Mr. Weber, my lawyer, called. "Gloria," he said, "your daughter-in-law submitted a statement from your pharmacist. According to this paper, you have erratic behavior with medications. Supposedly you hoard pills and forget to take them." My heart pounded. That is a lie. I only buy vitamins and aspirin. Exactly. Which means the document is either manipulated or misunderstood. We will address it. I hung up, trembling. The betrayal had climbed another step. They were not satisfied with humiliation or money. Now they wanted to paint me as incompetent. The next morning, my doorbell rang. On the camera, I saw Marcus and Tasha again, but this time they had brought another man I did not recognize. I did not open. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message. "Mom, please open. We have to talk about serious matters." I refused. Later, I heard from Mr. Weber that they had been asking questions about guardianship laws. My son was preparing to declare me unfit to manage my own life. That night, I sat at my table staring at the folder of documents I had kept. Every check stub, every bank receipt, every note of rent paid on their behalf. More than $33,000 recorded in neat lines. Proof not of incompetence, but of relentless giving. Proof of exploitation. Days later, the battle reached a new level. A woman in a navy blazer appeared at my porch holding official identification. "Good morning," she said. "I am Mrs. Schmidt from Senior Services. We received reports that you may be at risk. We need to conduct a wellness check." Reports. Of course. Marcus and Tasha had carried their lies to the government. I asked for identification and then let her inside, knowing refusal would only feed their case. She opened a folder. "According to these notes, you have made sudden financial changes, cut off family communication, installed unnecessary security, and refused medical guidance." Every phrase dripped with manipulation. I asked calmly, "May I call my lawyer before answering?" "This is not a legal interrogation," she said. "If you have nothing to hide, it should not be a problem." That phrase pierced me. I called Mr. Weber anyway. Within 20 minutes he arrived, face set in stone. "Miss Schmidt, my client is under my legal representation. Unless you have a court order, this visit is harassment." She faltered. "We only want to ensure her well-being." Mr. Weber spread documents across the table. "Here is proof of her mental capacity, medical exams, financial records, and a list of over $33,000 she provided to her son and daughter-in-law. If anyone needs investigation, it is not my client." Mrs. Schmidt read in silence. Finally, she closed her folder. "Mrs. Robinson," she said, "I see no indication you require intervention. I will close this case." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Mr. Weber leaned close. "Gloria, this will escalate. They are desperate. They may fabricate more evidence or push for court." That evening, Eleanor visited again carrying a small pie she had baked. I told her everything. She shook her head. "My daughter tried the same tactics years ago. First sweet talk, then threats, then claims of confusion. They all read from the same book of manipulation." We laughed bitterly together. Her companionship gave me strength. I was not alone. Still, I could not ignore the fear. My own son was building a case to strip me of control. The woman he married was willing to lie in legal documents. They had turned family into enemies. That night before bed, I wrote in my journal, "If they want war, they will get it. But I will fight with clarity, not despair." The next morning, I called Mr. Weber and said it aloud. "I am ready for whatever comes. I will not surrender my life." The weeks that followed felt like walking across glass. Every day, I expected the next strike. It came one Friday morning when the bell rang again. On the camera stood a young woman in a neat blazer carrying a folder. Her smile was professional but distant. "Good morning, Mrs. Robinson," she said. "My name is Dana Schmidt from Senior Services. We have received a report that you may be at risk. I need to conduct a wellness check." My pulse raced. Reports, always reports. Marcus and Tasha had carried their scheme to another level. I opened the door slowly. "May I see your identification?" She showed it quickly, and I let her in. She sat at my dining table, the same place where my daughter-in-law once spread lies with a lawyer. "Mrs. Robinson," she began, "according to our information, you have made sudden financial changes, severed family communication, installed unnecessary security, and refused medical advice." Each phrase was a knife. I said calmly, "Miss Schmidt, I would like to call my attorney before answering." "This is not an interrogation," she replied. "If you have nothing to hide, it should not be a problem." Her words chilled me. I dialed anyway. Within 20 minutes, Mr. Weber walked in, his expression hard. "Miss Schmidt, my client is under my representation. Unless you have a court order, this visit is inappropriate." She hesitated. "We are only concerned for her safety." Mr. Weber opened a folder. "Here are her financial records, medical exams, and documentation of more than $33,000 transferred to her son and daughter-in-law in 3 years. If anyone needs investigation, it is not my client." Miss Schmidt scanned the pages, her professional mask faltering. Finally, she closed the folder. "Mrs. Robinson, based on this information, I see no reason to proceed further. I will close this case." Relief surged through me, but it was brief. Mr. Weber looked serious. "Gloria, this is far from over. They can still pursue a guardianship petition. They may even fabricate witnesses." That evening, I sat in my garden with Eleanor. She listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "My daughter once tried the same," she said. "She told neighbors I was confused. She even suggested to doctors that I was losing memory. It is always the same pattern." Her voice was calm but strong. "Do not doubt yourself, Gloria. You are clear. You are strong. They want you to feel weak because weakness serves them." Her encouragement steadied me. For the first time, I realized the gift of solidarity. My neighbors and new friends had become more family than the blood that betrayed me. A few days later, I received another call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but answered. Tasha's voice slid through the line. "Gloria, please. We made mistakes. Marcus and I want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner? We can cook together like we used to." Her tone was honey, but her intent was clear. I asked, "How many months of rent are you behind?" Silence answered me. Then a small voice, 2 months, $1,000. "So it is about money again." "Both," she said quickly. "We need help, but we also love you." "If I were so important, why was I not at your wedding? Why have you never called just to ask how I am?" She stammered but had no reply. I said, "Tasha, this conversation is finished. You made your choice. Now I make mine." I hung up and turned off the phone. The silence after that click felt like medicine. The next morning, Ethan arrived with equipment and installed the final cameras around my house. Now I could see every angle from my phone. If they returned uninvited, the police would know. The irony stung. I had to protect myself not from strangers, but from my own child. Later that week, I did something I had not done in a year. I walked into the beauty salon. Cynthia, my stylist, gasped, "Gloria, what a surprise. We thought you forgot us." I smiled. "I forgot myself, Cynthia." But not anymore. I treated myself to a full cut, color, and manicure. For 2 hours, I was not a mother or a provider. I was simply a woman. When she spun me to the mirror, I saw not just neat hair, but a freer face. "You look beautiful," Cynthia said. "More than that, you look free." I walked home with lighter steps, carrying not groceries for Marcus and Tasha, but small gifts for myself. The locks clicked firmly behind me. The cameras glowed softly. My reflection in the hall mirror showed a woman who had reclaimed her ground. The war was not finished, but I was no longer trembling. I was ready. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Mr. Weber's voice was low but steady. "Gloria, they have filed the petition. Marcus and Tasha are asking the court to declare you incompetent and to assign guardianship." My hands shook, though I had expected it. The words still felt like a stone dropped into my chest. Does this mean they can take my money? If the judge believes them, yes. They are claiming you cannot manage your affairs. They presented statements from neighbors and a pharmacist. They even attached unpaid medical bills that do not exist. We will fight this. But you must be ready. I sat at my dining table for a long time, staring at the blue dress in the closet across the hall. How had a wedding turned into a courtroom war? That afternoon, Mr. Weber came to my house with a large folder. We need to gather every record you have, every transfer, every gift, every receipt. Documentation will be our strongest defense. I opened the drawer and handed him the folder I had prepared. Rent checks, grocery lists, repair bills. $33,000 in neat stacks. His eyes widened. With this much evidence, he said, the court will see a pattern. You supported them like dependents. That does not prove incompetence. It proves exploitation. Still fear gnawed at me. What if the judge believed their lies? What if my own son testified that I was losing my mind? Mr. Weber leaned forward. Gloria, we will also need a professional evaluation. I have a colleague, Dr. Moore, who specializes in mental capacity. She will conduct tests and write a report. This will crush any claim of decline. 2 days later, I sat in Dr. Moore's office. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp but kind eyes. For 2 hours, she asked me questions about memory, reasoning, finances, and logic. She had me solve math problems and recall details from stories. At the end, she smiled. Mrs. Robinson, your results are excellent. Your cognitive function is above average for your age. I will prepare a full report for the court. Relief washed over me, but sorrow too. I needed to prove to strangers that I was sane because my own son said otherwise. When I left the office, I found Eleanor waiting outside. She hugged me tightly. Do not let them shake you. You are sharper than women half your age. In the evenings, I met with a small circle of neighbors at Eleanor's home. They listened as I told them about the case. Maria shook her head. If they call me, I will testify for you. We have seen your clarity. Carmen added, I will too. No one can say you are confused when we see you every week. Their support wrapped around me like armor. At night, though, the fear returned. I dreamed of Marcus as a child clinging to my hand. Then the dream shifted, and he was a grown man ripping papers from my table. I woke drenched in sweat. To quiet the fear, I began a ritual. Every morning I walked to the cemetery where Robert rested. I knelt by his stone and whispered, Robert, our son, is not the boy we raised. He is someone else now. I am fighting not just for money, but for dignity. Watch over me. One Saturday afternoon, as I returned from the cemetery, I saw cars outside my home. Marcus and Tasha stood with 2 other people. They gestured angrily toward my door. I did not step out. Instead, I called Mr. Weber. He answered immediately. Do not confront them. I will call the police. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived. Officers spoke to Marcus, who flailed his arms in protest. Tasha cried her rehearsed tears. An officer came to my window. Ma'am, they will leave now. You are safe. From the street, Marcus shouted, Mom, this is ridiculous. We are your family. How can you call the police on your own son? I opened the window enough for my voice. Family does not try to steal each other's lives. Leave. They drove away defeated but still plotting. That night, Mr. Weber visited again. We will present these incidents as evidence. They show harassment and pressure. The judge must see the pattern. I nodded. My fear was turning into resolve. They wanted to paint me as weak. Instead, I would walk into court, stronger than ever. Before bed, I opened my journal and wrote one line. I am not confused. I am clear. And soon the world will see it too. The courthouse smelled faintly of old wood and polished marble. I walked through its doors, wearing my best black suit, my spine straight despite the weight pressing on my heart. Mr. Weber walked beside me, calm and deliberate. Remember, Gloria, he whispered, the burden is on them. They must prove you are incompetent. You only need to show your truth. Inside the courtroom, I saw Marcus in a brand new suit and Tasha dressed in somber black as though attending a funeral. Perhaps it was the funeral of the family bond we once had. Marcus avoided my eyes, but Tasha stared coldly, daring me to falter. Their lawyer, a silver-haired man with the polished tone of experience, greeted the judge with confidence. Your Honor. He began, my clients come before you in sadness. Their mother has shown clear mental decline. She has cut off all financial support without reason, isolated herself from family, and succumbed to paranoia by installing unnecessary security. She is under the influence of neighbors and outsiders who exploit her vulnerability. We ask that guardianship be assigned for her protection. Every word painted me as fragile, when in truth I had never been stronger. They called Tasha first. She stepped to the witness stand with a trembling voice and carefully timed tears. "Gloria has always been like a second mother to me," she said. "But recently she changed. She yells at us. She forgets things. She shut us out. We are heartbroken." Mr. Weber rose for cross-examination. "Mrs. Robinson, can you tell the court when was the last time you called my client without asking for money?" Tasha blinked. "We always talk about many things. A specific date, please." She faltered. "I cannot recall." "Is it true you and your husband married without inviting her?" "It was small. Did you or did you not tell her that you only invited special people?" Her cheeks flushed. Those words were taken out of context. What context makes a mother not special? The courtroom fell silent. Next came Marcus. Seeing him raise his hand and swear to tell the truth twisted my stomach. "My mom has been generous," he admitted. "But lately she is irrational. She is being manipulated. We only want to help." Mr. Weber approached slowly. "Mr. Robinson, how much money have you received from your mother in 3 years?" "I do not know. Would 33,000 sound accurate?" "Maybe. She has always given." "How many times have you visited her without asking for money?" Marcus swallowed hard. Silence stretched heavy. "Is it true you entered her house without permission and searched her documents?" "We were worried." "Is it true you brought a lawyer to press her to sign a power of attorney?" "We thought it was best." "At 35, do you need your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent?" His shoulders sagged. He had no answer. Their final witness was a neighbor, Mr. Davis, who claimed I behaved strangely. He described the cameras on my house, the visitors who were my friends, and the times I shouted at Marcus and Tasha in the street. But under questioning, he admitted he had never spoken to me directly and based his opinions only on what he saw from his window. Then their doctor testified that my refusal to take a psychiatric exam proved decline. Mr. Weber presented Dr. Moore's evaluation instead, showing my scores above average. Now it was our turn. Mr. Green, the pharmacist, confessed he had been misled into signing a paper. He clarified that I only purchased vitamins. Dr. Moore spoke firmly about my excellent mental health. Mr. Simmons, the hardware store owner, testified that I came personally and rationally requested new locks and security. Eleanor and other neighbors told the judge of my clarity, my independence, my friendships. Finally, I took the stand. My voice trembled at first, but grew stronger. For 3 years, I paid their rent, bought food-covered debts, more than $33,000. I did it because I loved them, but they repaid me with exclusion. They married without me, then demanded more. When I stopped, they tried to strip me of dignity. "Do you regret stopping?" Mr. Weber asked. "I only regret waiting so long." The opposing lawyer pressed me with quick questions, trying to trap me, but I answered clearly. When he suggested I was manipulated by outsiders, I smiled sadly. "No, sir. For the first time in years, I have relationships based on respect, not money. That is not manipulation. That is freedom." In closing, their lawyer repeated that I was vulnerable and confused. Mr. Weber rose last. "Your Honor, what we have here is not an incompetent woman. We have a woman who finally ended years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs present no true evidence of decline. They present frustration because their source of income said no." The judge retired for deliberation. 2 hours dragged like years. When he returned, his voice was steady. "After reviewing all evidence, it is obvious that Mrs. Gloria Robinson is in full possession of her mental faculties. Professional evaluation confirms her competence. Her financial choices are rational. The court denies the request for guardianship." The gavel struck. I exhaled a breath I had been holding for months. Marcus looked away, his jaw clenched. Tasha's face hardened with fury. They stormed out of the courtroom while my friends gathered around me with quiet cheers. That night, Eleanor hosted a small gathering at her home. We raised glasses of tea, not wine. She looked at me with warmth. "Gloria, today, you did not just win a trial, you won yourself back." For the first time in years, I believed her. When the verdict was spoken, I felt an invisible chain fall from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I could breathe without weight pressing down. The judge's words echoed in my ears as I walked out of the courthouse. Mrs. Robinson is in full possession of her mental faculties. The request for guardianship is denied. Outside the building, the sunlight seemed sharper. Eleanor stood waiting with her arms open. Cynthia from the salon was there too, and even Mr. Simmons from the hardware store. They hugged me one by one. I had entered the courthouse as a defendant in my own family's case. I left as a woman who reclaimed her name. Marcus and Tasha hurried away across the street with their lawyer trailing behind. Tasha turned once her face twisted in rage. Marcus hesitated, his eyes meeting mine for a second. There might have been a shadow of regret there, but it vanished quickly. They climbed into their car and drove off without a word. That night, Eleanor hosted a small celebration at her home. We sat around her dining table with steaming bowls of soup and fresh bread. Maria and Carmen told me how proud they were of my courage. Elfrida, the eldest among us, lifted her glass. "Gloria, you did not only protect yourself, you gave every one of us strength." I smiled through tears. I had not cried in court. I had not cried when Marcus accused me of madness. But now, among women who understood, I let the tears flow. They were not tears of despair. They were tears of release. When I returned home, I opened every window and let the night air sweep through. The cameras blinked softly, guardians of my peace. I walked room to room and whispered, "This is mine. This silence belongs to me." Days turned into weeks. For the first time in decades, my schedule was empty of obligations for others. No rent transfers, no grocery runs for their refrigerator, no calls to landlords. My mornings began with quiet breakfasts and the newspapers spread across the table. Sometimes I painted flowers on the easel I had abandoned long ago. Sometimes I walked to the park and sat watching children laugh, remembering Marcus as a boy before money hardened him. One Saturday, I visited Robert's grave again. The cemetery was calm, the grass neatly trimmed. I knelt by his stone and laid fresh flowers. "Robert," I said, "I think I have finally learned. Our son grew into someone neither of us hoped for. But I cannot carry him anymore. I must carry myself." I felt the breeze brush my cheek, and in that moment, I imagined his approval. The freedom was not only emotional, it was financial too. With Mr. Weber's guidance, I opened a new account at a different bank. I set up protections that only I could control. I made a new will to safeguard what remained. For the first time, I felt my future was safe in my own hands. Yet shadows lingered. Occasionally, I saw Marcus's car parked down the street. Sometimes Tasha's number appeared on caller ID from borrowed phones. I ignored them. Eleanor reminded me each time. Their persistence only proves their desperation. Keep your distance. At night, when fear tried to return, I remembered the judge's voice. Competent, rational, independent. Those words became a shield. One evening, I treated myself to a dinner out alone. I sat at a small restaurant downtown, ordered steak and red wine, and watched the world bustle outside. No one asked me for money. No one demanded a signature. For 2 hours, I belonged only to myself. The waitress brought dessert on the house, saying, "You look radiant tonight." I laughed softly. Perhaps freedom shines brighter than jewelry. The following week, Eleanor invited me to join her gardening club. I hesitated at first, but then agreed. Sitting among those women, my hands deep in soil, I felt connected again. We talked of plants and seasons, not of rent or debts. When I went home that day, my nails were dirty, but my spirit was clean. I knew Marcus and Tasha might try again someday. Greed rarely surrenders gracefully. But I also knew I was ready. If they came with threats, I had lawyers. If they came with lies, I had truth. If they came with tears, I had memory. And if they never came again, I had peace. That night, I wrote one final line in my journal. I am free, not because the court declared it. I am free because I finally declared it to myself. 3 months after the trial, I stood at the front gate of the house where I had lived for decades. The paint on the shutters was peeling, the garden weeds had crept too far, and the walls seemed to carry whispers of every argument and every tear I had ever shed. This place had been both my sanctuary and my prison. When Robert was alive, it was filled with laughter, Sunday dinners, and the small rituals that make a marriage whole. But after his passing, and especially during the years of supporting Marcus and Tasha, it had turned into a cage. Every room reminded me of bills paid for someone else, of sacrifices that brought me no joy. I closed the door for the last time and handed the keys to the realtor. My chest tightened, not with grief, but with release. I whispered goodbye to the house, then drove toward a new beginning. My apartment downtown was bright, clean, and filled with light from wide windows. It was smaller than the house, but it felt endless with possibility. From my balcony, I could see the rhythm of the city buses humming by, people hurrying with grocery bags, couples laughing arm in arm. I was no longer trapped in a place of memory. I was in the center of life again. The first morning in the new apartment, I brewed coffee and set the cup on the balcony railing. No phone rang with desperate requests. No knock shook the door with accusations. The silence felt alive. I took a breath of cool air and felt 20 years younger. I unpacked slowly, not rushing the process. Each item I placed was chosen because it belonged to me, not because someone else demanded it. On one wall, I hung photographs of Robert and me, in our early years, his smile wide, my hair still black and shining. On another shelf, I set up paints and brushes I had neglected. The smell of oil paint filled the air, sharp but comforting. With the money I once funneled into Marcus and Tasha's endless needs, I allowed myself to dream again. I booked a trip to Europe, something Robert and I had always planned but never managed. In Paris, I walked along the Seine at dusk, streetlights reflecting gold on the water. I ate croissants warm from the oven and drank coffee in sidewalk cafes alone, but never lonely. In Florence, I stood before Michelangelo's David, marveling at the perfection of stone carved by human hands. In Venice, I rode in a gondola, the water glistening with the reflections of old palaces. In Rome, I lit a candle in a cathedral and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Not for the betrayal I endured, but for the strength it forced me to uncover. Without it, I might still be living as a silent servant to greed. Travel changed me. Each city reminded me of a younger Gloria, the one who had once dreamed of art, of culture, of seeing the world. I realized she had never died. She had only been buried under years of sacrifice. Now she had risen again. When I returned home, I joined a volunteer group supporting seniors who faced financial abuse. Sitting in the community center, I listened to voices shake with stories that mirrored mine. Mothers drained by adult children, fathers manipulated into signing over homes, grandparents threatened into silence. Each tale was a mirror reflecting what I had endured. One woman, her hands trembling, said, "My son told me I was confused, that I could not handle money. He tried to take my house." I reached for her hand. "I know that story. You are not alone." Her tears turned into strength. "Gloria, your courage gives me courage." I decided then that my suffering would not be wasted. I donated part of my savings to organizations protecting the elderly. I spoke at small events telling my story openly. At first it was hard to expose the shame, but I learned that shame belongs to those who exploit, not those who resist. The other part of my savings I used for myself. I remodeled my apartment with warm colors, yellow curtains, a red rug, bright paintings. I filled bookshelves with novels and histories I had always wanted to read. I signed up for art classes, and every Tuesday I joined a group of women painting landscapes and portraits. My brush moved hesitantly at first, but soon the strokes grew confident. One afternoon I painted a tree strong and rooted its branches stretching wide. Cynthia from the salon visited and said, "Gloria, that tree looks like you." Eleanor became my companion in adventure. Together we joined a salsa dancing class. We laughed when our steps tangled. We went to small concerts in the park. We spent afternoons drinking lemonade on her porch, talking not of money or obligation, but of life, love, and plans still possible. Sometimes at night, I thought about Marcus. I wondered if he regretted what he had done. Friends told me he and Tasha had moved into a smaller apartment. Tasha had taken a job for the first time in years. Perhaps life was teaching them lessons my generosity never could. I did not wish them harm. I wished them wisdom. But I no longer waited for their calls. My life was no longer tied to their recognition. On the anniversary of Robert's passing, I returned to his grave. The cemetery was peaceful. The grass trimmed, the air filled with bird song. I knelt and placed fresh lilies. "Robert," I said softly, "I am living now, truly living." I travel, I paint, I laugh. I am surrounded by people who value me. Our son made choices that hurt us both, but I will not let those choices define me. As I rose to leave, the breeze stirred gently. For a moment, I imagined his hand resting on my shoulder, steady and proud. When I walked back to my apartment that evening, the city sky spread like a quilt of stars. I stepped onto my balcony, the lights flickering below like fireflies. For years, I thought freedom was selfish. Now I knew it was survival. For years, I thought love had to be purchased. Now I knew true love is never for sale. I am Gloria Robinson. I am 72 years old, and I have discovered something simple yet powerful. The most important person I must learn to care for is myself. I sat down at my desk and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote in bold letters, "A new chapter," and I began to fill it not with debts or transfers, but with plans. Trips I still wanted to take, books I wanted to read, classes I wanted to try, faces of new friends I hoped to meet. The night stretched long, but I did not feel tired. For the first time in decades, I was not afraid of tomorrow. I was excited for it. True love cannot be bought with sacrifices or money. Respect and dignity are the foundations of real family bonds. When people see you only as a resource, you must choose freedom. Protecting yourself is not selfishness. It is the first act of genuine self-love.